The owl's beak tapped against the glass, but tonight it wasn't just a call, it was a warning. Olivia's breath caught as the forgotten book in her lap began to glow, the pages shimmering with an eerie light. What had she unleashed? But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. Olivia sat in stunned silence, her heart racing. Her hand instinctively reached out to touch the book, her fingers brushing the pages where the owl's beak had pecked. The air around her seemed to hum with an energy she couldn't quite place. The book was still warm from the owl's touch, as though something alive had passed through it. She felt a strange sense of reverence, as if the owl had shared a secret with her. Something ancient, something otherworldly. Her pulse quickened as she slowly opened the book, the pages flickering under her fingertips like the wings of the owl. The words, once faded and nearly illegible, were now crystal clear, written in ink that seemed to shimmer in the moonlight. The story was unlike any she had ever read before, one of adventure, of faraway lands, and of a hero who sought knowledge beyond the stars. As she read, she found herself drawn into the narrative, her mind racing to keep up with the incredible journey unfolding before her. But what captivated her most was the feeling, the unmistakable sensation that this story wasn't just a tale, it was alive. The words seemed to whisper to her, urging her to keep going, to uncover more. The owl, she realized, wasn't just a visitor. It was the key to unlocking something deeper, something hidden beneath the surface of the library and its stories. The night grew colder, the moon dipping lower in the sky, but Olivia couldn't bring herself to close the book. The owl's visit had left an imprint on her soul, one she couldn't ignore. She had to know more. What did it all mean? Why had the owl chosen her, and why this particular book? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sudden sound of a soft flutter outside the window. The owl had returned. It perched on the windowsill once more, its eyes locking with hers, but this time it didn't tap on the glass. Instead, it simply stared, as though waiting for her to make the next move. Olivia's breath caught in her throat. She didn't know what the owl wanted, but she knew without a doubt that she had to follow where this mysterious path led. She closed the book carefully, her fingers lingering on the cover, and stood up, crossing the room toward the window. The owl didn't move, its gaze never faltering. For a moment, Olivia hesitated. The air between them felt charged, as though something was about to shift. And then, with a quiet resolve, she opened the window wide. The owl flew inside, its wings brushing against her face as it landed softly on the desk. It was as though it had been waiting for her to make the decision, and now the story that had been unfolding in the pages of that old, forgotten book would be hers to complete. Olivia sat frozen, the book heavy in her hands as the words on the final page lingered before her eyes. Her mind struggled to make sense of what she had just read, her heartbeat pounding in her chest like a wild drum. She ran her fingers over her name, written so plainly, yet with such power, that it felt as though the ink itself might burn her skin. Olivia. It was no longer just a name. It was a summons, a command woven into the fabric of something far older than the town, than the library, than her own existence. The room felt impossibly still, the air thick with the weight of the revelation. Her gaze shifted to the window, to the owl now perched there, as though it had been waiting for this moment. Its golden eyes glowed, watching her with an intensity that seemed to pierce straight through to her soul. It wasn't just the owl anymore. It was an ancient being, a guide, a keeper of secrets far too vast for her to comprehend. Yet the book had given her the first pieces of the puzzle, pieces she had no choice but to take. Clara's story, so eerily similar to her own, haunted her thoughts. She could see Clara clearly in her mind's eye, a girl just like her, isolated and searching, her only solace found in the companionship of the very same owl that visited Olivia each night. But Clara's story had spiraled into tragedy. Her desperation to share the town's hidden magic had fractured something deep within the fabric of their world, unleashing the very stories meant to remain buried. It was as if Clara, in her loneliness, had torn open a door to a dimension where stories lived and breathed, and in doing so had broken the sacred rule of their containment. Olivia's mind raced, trying to piece together the consequences of Clara's mistake. The owl's role in this seemed clear now. Each visit, each tap on the glass, was part of a larger effort to restore balance. But the more Olivia thought, the more unsettled she became. She wasn't just a passive observer, she was a participant, chosen to correct something that she couldn't even fully grasp. Was she ready to shoulder such a responsibility? What would it mean to step into the story that had already begun? The answer, she realized with a sinking feeling, was already unfolding before her. She had no choice but to follow the owl's lead, to trust in the strange pull that had drawn her here. The book had drawn her in, and now it seemed she was bound to it, just as Clara had been bound to her own story. The weight of the task before her felt suffocating, yet there was no turning back. As the owl fluttered its wings, a low, almost imperceptible hum filled the air. It was as if the library itself was alive, its very walls resonating with the energy of the forgotten stories waiting to be reclaimed. Olivia could almost hear the whisper of the pages, the collective breath of the town's lost tales, calling to her. Her hand tightened around the book, and she knew this was no longer just a mystery to be solved. This was her destiny, and it was about to unfold in ways she could never have imagined. The full moon bathed the library in silver light, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the wooden floor. Olivia stood by the window, staring out into the night. The owl had come again. Its rhythmic tapping against the glass was no longer a cause for alarm, but a summons. The familiar sound, so steady and insistent, had become a part of her nights, woven into the fabric of her existence like a heartbeat. She felt its presence before she even saw it, the pull of something ancient, something that she had come to understand as both a gift and a burden. For days she had pored over the book, its pages now worn from the countless times she had turned them. Every word, every line, revealed a new layer of meaning, a deeper understanding of the owl's purpose. The history of Clara's town, hidden in whispers and half-forgotten tales, painted a picture of a world where stories were not just told, but lived. The owl was not merely a creature of the night, nor was it a simple messenger. It was the keeper of the stories, a silent guardian that ensured the tales did not slip into oblivion. And Clara had been the catalyst, the one who had broken the fragile barrier between the living and the forgotten. She had opened the door, and in doing so, set a chain of events into motion that only Olivia could now complete. The weight of the revelation settled over her like an anchor, tethering her to something far beyond her comprehension. She had never been a leader. She had always been a watcher, a quiet observer of the world around her. The diner, the library, the routine of her life, it had all been her refuge, her way of remaining unseen. But that was before the owl, before the book, before the call to restore what had been fractured. Now, as she stood in the soft glow of the moon, the weight of destiny pressed upon her with an undeniable certainty. The stories, living, breathing, waiting, had chosen her. She wasn't sure why, nor did it matter. She had a part to play, and for the first time in her life, she felt ready to step into it. When the owl tapped at the window again, its golden eyes gleaming in the dark, Olivia knew the time had come. She opened the window, not with hesitation, but with purpose. The owl perched on the sill, its presence a silent affirmation. There was no fear now, only acceptance of the role she had been thrust into. She opened the book to the final page, the words glowing faintly in the moonlight. "The guardian shall restore the balance, and the stories shall be whole again." The sentence reverberated in her chest, the meaning of it settling like an ancient echo. She spoke the words aloud, her voice steady but filled with awe. As the last syllable left her lips, the room seemed to hum with energy, the air thick with the magic that had long been dormant. In an instant, the owl flew toward her, its wings a blur of motion. Olivia extended her arm, and it landed gently, its talons gripping her with a strength that was both reassuring and final. For the first time, she felt the weight of the owl's responsibility transfer to her, the bond between them now complete. She was no longer just a reader of stories. She was a keeper. The balance had been restored, the tales would remain whole, and the owl's work was done. With a soft flutter of wings, the owl took flight once more, vanishing into the night as silently as it had come. Olivia watched it go, her heart full of both gratitude and a quiet sadness. The journey was over, but in many ways it had just begun. The stories were hers now, a part of her soul. The library window would remain open, as it always had been, but now it was not just a place of escape. It was her portal to worlds unseen, to tales untold. Olivia smiled softly to herself, the weight of her new role settling comfortably on her shoulders. She was no longer an observer. She was a guardian, a keeper of stories, a protector of the unseen. And as the moonlight poured in through the open window, she knew that whatever came next, she was ready.